Good evening and welcome to the AMS and Queens Student Alumni Association's event, VR Interview Workshop. On behalf of the entire executive, we are incredibly excited to have you here all today. My name is Shasha Vijayaratna and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a fourth year in the Geography and Planning Department and I'm the Director of Student Transition. Before we begin, please make sure your mics are muted, and if you don't have any control over that, then we're already doing great. On behalf of the Queens Student Alumni Association, I would like to begin by acknowledging our presence on Indigenous lands across Turtle Island. While all of us here are encouraged to honor the history of the land from your respective location, it is my responsibility to reflect on QSAA and the privileges we experience as a result of a colonial project. Queen's University and the organizations that represent this institution have deep colonial roots. And it is only through colonialization and destruction that I have the ability to learn, work, and play on these lands and waterways. We need to be open to the truths of the past and be willing to listen, learn, and attempt to understand our own positions and what has come to us as a result of those who came before. I urge us all to consider our own positionality as we gather online today. As we all join in from different locations, I would like to remind everyone to please carefully follow our code of conduct. Once again, we ask that all participants stay muted during the session, but you are more than welcome to have your cameras on for the event. Throughout this session, any questions can be directed through the chat function and will be answered during the Q&A portion. The questions can be directed to any of our guests or regarding the software. This session will be recorded so that students who are unable to attend the live session will be able to watch it after. We remind everyone to have a respectful and safe discussion. Before I hand it off to our moderators, I would like to turn our attention to our Director of Marketing, Alyssa, who would like to take a picture for our socials.
There we go. Okay, amazing. So just give me 2 seconds. And if you guys just all want to say cheese, that would be amazing. All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Amazing. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Alyssa. And now to introduce the speakers of our event, I will hand it off to our wonderful moderators, Simran Jonja and Katie Austin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Simran and I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently in my first year majoring in health sciences. I'm a first year intern under the amazing QSAA president, Arian, and I'm also involved in the Undergraduate Review, a magazine that publishes student art here at Queen's. My experience in the UR has allowed me to explore the Queen's art community, and I'm excited to see the final publication. With that said, I am so excited to be introducing some of our guests for this evening. We are incredibly privileged to have them here with us today. First, we are very fortunate to have our special guest interviewer, Aziz Garuba, MBA class of 2012, director at RBC Capital Markets, join us to provide actual industry best practice feedback to this event. Aziz is a dynamic finance and management consulting professional with over 12 years of experience, driving change and delivering improvements to business performance. Aziz worked as a management consultant with a Big Four consulting firm, where he led performance improvement and digital finance transformation engagements for clients across various industries, including financial services, mining, retail, and technology. A diversity and inclusion advocate, Aziz is active in the community and a former president and member of the Canadian Association of Urban Financial Professionals. He was recently elected to the University Council at Queen's University. He is also the producer and host of the podcast Made to Lead, a show that highlights Black excellence and leadership through thought-provoking success stories of amazing professionals and entrepreneurs of African descent who are leading in various industries. Aziz is also a 2019 CPA Ontario Emerging Leaders Award recipient. Welcome, Aziz. Next, we have Josh Zettle, Queen's Certified Career Counselor in attendance tonight. Josh is the co-manager of Queen's Connects Career Network for students and alumni on LinkedIn, and advises students on career self-management, work search practices, labor market research, and the evaluation of further education options. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you, Josh. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently in my first year majoring in computing. I'm a first-year intern under Shasha, our lovely Director of Student Transition within QSAA, and I'm involved in Queen's Women in Computing and the PERC Lab here at Queen's. Besides programming, I also like to draw, write, and listen to music. With that said, I am honored to be introducing our interviewees and facilitator for this evening. Firstly, we have Alith Roos, who is an incoming president for the Arts and Science Undergraduate Society, or ASUS. She is a political studies major currently in her third year. In her early years at Queen's, she was an intern for the Political Studies Department Student Council, the Queen's International Affairs Association, and ASUS. Through her time at the Queen's International Affairs Association, she worked as a community outreach director, as well as the charge d'affaires for 2 different conferences. Prior to becoming the president, she worked at ASUS as the academics deputy and later the academics commissioner. Fun fact, Alith was born in Bogota, Colombia. Alith's future career interests are in foreign affairs and international diplomacy. She hopes to apply her love for politics and public service to a global institutional framework one day. Next up is Monot Singh, a second-year commerce student at Queen's. During her first year, she was a volunteer for Queen's Commerce Kids. She designed and delivered presentations on cultural significance with an aim to promote diversity and inclusion among children from an early age. Currently, she is the Diversity and Inclusion Ambassador for the Queen's Student Alumni Association. Within her role, she engages in active learning about inclusivity and diversity and adapts that to the online environment and seeks to teach the QSAA team valuable information. She is creating and developing the first QSAA Diversity and Inclusion booklet, outlining steps on inclusion for online platforms. Fun fact, she has broken a national record in the 100 meters breaststroke in India. For postgraduate careers, Monot is interested in marketing and law. She is also interested in the beauty industry and is currently in the initial stages of starting her own club under the Commerce Society. Our final interviewee is Owen Crawford Lem, a sociology and political studies medial student currently in his second year at Queen's, while also pursuing a certificate in business. During his early years at Queen's, he was a first-year marketing intern for the Arts and Science Undergraduate Society. Currently, he is the Industry Relations Coordinator for the Professional Development Team at ASUS, Ambassador to the Director of Giving in the Queen's Student Alumni Association, and is a part of the Logistics team for the Queen's Sustainability Conference. Fun fact, Owen was born in a small off-the-grid cabin in the mountains of British Columbia and moved to Ontario when he was 3. He is interested in the management and strategy consulting industry and business development, but would also be interested in working in government, in policy, or international relations. We are grateful to have you here today and are excited to see your interview skills in action. Last, but definitely not least, is our facilitator for the evening tonight, InStage co-founder Imran Muna. Imran is passionately engaged in creating the world that he wants to live in and believes immersive technology is going to be an integral part of it. InStage offers simulation-based remote training that helps individuals develop the soft skills they need to succeed in the workplace. Through realistic practice sessions, participants can learn how to introduce themselves, deliver presentations, communicate effectively, and sharpen their interview skills in an immersive training environment. Imran has won multiple pitch competitions and will be our guide through this real-time VR interview demo. I'll now hand it over to Imran.
All right, how is it going, Queens? It is awesome to be back. I'm super excited for tonight, and thank you, QSAA, for organizing such a special event to me tonight. What we're going to do is I'm going to give you a quick overview of what to expect here for the rest of the evening. Take a look on the screen right in front of you here. Don't go anywhere. This is the plan for the night. What I want to do first is explain a bit about how InStage works. And hopefully those of you who have come out today have seen some of the QSA ads that have gone around. But in a nutshell, InStage is all about creating a safe place to practice the communication skills you need to be successful in your careers. So for many of you who are here tonight because you're going to be interviewing for a job, this is going to be a great evening for you to learn a bit about this technology and also hear some insights from our guest experts tonight that will give you some tips and tricks to hopefully give you an edge once you get into the workplace. So We're going to be doing that with a couple opening polls, and we want you to be part of those for the rest of the evening. We're going to be using these to get a sense of where you are in your career progressions, questions you might have that we can send to our guest experts here and get answered tonight, as well as we're going to be using these polls to give you a chance to sit in the other side of the table here. Tonight, it's going to be up to you whether you think our interviewees are ready for the job. We're going to be handing you the decision power on letting us know whether you would hire them for a real job tonight. And I'm going to show you that position in just a second, and I'm going to put it in the chat. We're super fortunate that Aziz has sent us this link to a current position available at RBC. So we're going to be using it as the basis for our practice session tonight. And if any of you want to actually apply for it, just click on the link, send that ahead, and definitely let us know if you apply, because it'd be very cool to hear if you end up going on to use some of the tips and tricks you learn here tonight. Throughout the evening, of course, we're going to get into the simulation. That's not going to be far away. We're going to put our volunteers here tonight into the simulation so you can actually see what it's like for them to practice with the InStage characters and hear some of the feedback they get from the data reports we generate. So if you have questions or you want to encourage them throughout the night, make sure you're sending messages in the chat for them. It's super brave of them to jump into the hot seat tonight, so make sure you're wishing them good luck in the chat. And of course, we're going to be answering your questions from here on out the rest of the night. So before we get into the actual interview itself, take a look in the chat here, and you can see what we're expecting our volunteers to be interviewing tonight. So take a look at that. I also want to get Aziz on the line here now. Aziz, we're going to get started with our first poll, and a big thank you as well for coming out tonight to answer students' questions around their interview skills. This first poll is just to get everyone warmed up here. I want to know if you were sitting in the hot seat like our volunteers here tonight, if you were about to go to your next interview, which question would you find the most difficult to answer? Okay. And take a look at this poll here, everyone. Aziz, I'm curious, when you look at this poll here, and we're going to get Josh as well from Queen's Career Services on the line as well to give us some insights on this. What question do you expect students to be most worried about answering?
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, we'll see. So you can see some quick results coming in here, and yeah, this is different than what I normally see. Well, what do you expect students are most concerned about?
So I think most times students will be scared to actually answer how much they want to get paid.
That you can tell why Aziz is the expert here tonight. Yeah. That is often what I see. Josh, we'd love to get you on the line here as well to be part of the conversation here tonight. Being someone in career services, what do you sense students are most concerned about in this list of interview questions here as well?
Yeah, there's a couple good ones in there. The salary question, or how much to get paid, is definitely one I support students with. And sometimes when there's kind of a negative past experience, so like, have you ever been kind of fired from a job? There's always two sides to that conversation. So sometimes it's, how do I explain that context in a way that's not going to kind of hinder me in the interview, but also highlight maybe things I learned or growth I kind of got from that. So that's something else where there's something that we're not so proud of that we got to kind of talk about.
Well, there you see it, everyone. Just as expected here. Those are the top two concerns of the over, the 90 students we have here tonight who are here looking for some guidance on questions like that. So very closely tied with, what kind of critical feedback do you most often receive? Let's take a quick sec to think about how we can answer a question like that, Josh. So if you do have to talk about something that, might have been a tough learning experience, but you don't want to portray as something negative, what are some of the strategies around answering a question like, what critical feedback do you most often receive?
Yeah, that's great. Oftentimes this kind of relates a little bit to like, what's one of your greatest weaknesses? So what's something you're kind of working on? What's an area of growth, an area of development? And those questions aren't to catch you off guard or like figure out what's wrong with you. I think what those are more focused on is, one, what's your self-awareness? So do you even understand the implications of that kind of struggle? And two, what are the strategies you're using to improve? So kind of self-awareness and active efforts to improve that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Josh. Over to you, Aziz. As expected here, another huge concern for students. What do you expect to be paid? Which is surprising because I think you'll see the flip side of this question in a later poll when we ask students what is one of the most exciting things that they're looking forward to when they get a job. So how can students start to prepare themselves to answer a question like that?
Yeah, so one, I think it's not even a question that most students will get asked. But if for some reason you get asked that question, the best is always to say that I'd love to get paid whatever the competitive rate is for students. If you happen to have done your research already to know what that range is, then you can quote the number. There are a variety of resources like Glassdoor that you can use to gauge. Or if you already know students that, let's say, have worked in that company before, whether it was a summer co-op, summer internship, or a co-op, just ask your friends and say, hey, what was the salary range? If they say, oh yeah, I got paid $20 an hour, then you can use that as a benchmark to answer that question.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks a lot, Aziz. I'll throw just one quick tip that I've learned in there as well. It's useful to just have a sense of what your floor is. I find, sky's the limit on what you hope to get paid. Of course, I don't see anyone saying no to a higher salary than they expected, but definitely try and get a sense of the kind of lifestyle you want to live. What's your cost of rent? What does it cost to, entertain yourself the way you like? And put a floor on what you're expecting to get paid, so that if you do end up in that situation, like Aziz said, you do know what you're willing to walk away from. So some things to consider as you get into those situations. And of course, in the simulation tonight, we'll see how our students do with answering questions like that. But next, I want to know how many of you out there are actually looking for new jobs. And while we have that up, I'm going to share the link that Aziz has sent to us for the job that we're going to be practicing for tonight. Again, thank you, Aziz, for sharing this with us and letting us know about this position at RBC. We're currently looking at a financial analyst position. The interview skills we talk about tonight are going to apply to a number of different types of interviews. What's exciting about this tonight is you'll hear some tips and tricks around this position specifically. Aziz, anything you want to highlight about this opportunity?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things in this particular role is, some of the skill sets, right? So this is a general intake role for a variety of different finance opportunities across the bank. But more increasingly, we're seeing a need for students coming in with some very good tech skills. Although it's a finance role, there's an increasing shift towards having more technology-oriented skills, around programming, or as you can see in the nice to haves, VBA, SQL, Tableau, Python, Power BI. Those are cool things. And if you don't have them, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get a role in this space. But those are things that if you do have, you can use as differentiators. And I would say, always with roles like this, always look at what the must-haves are. And, if this is, let's say, your first role that you're applying for, see how you can pull in your volunteer work to sort of meet or match some of the things that are here, and some of your schoolwork as well. So let's say if you happen to be in a finance program, obviously the education piece kind of helps. If you're not in finance, let's say in economics, right, which is close enough, you can talk about your math skills, your research capabilities, and things like that. So always try and tie the skills that you do have, whether it's through volunteer work, through summer activities, or even the job that you had at a retail store, can help with roles like this.
I really appreciate those insights, Aziz. I think a lot of students do as well. Many times we'll hear students say they don't have experience or this is their first job, but they do forget about all those great school volunteer experiences. So thanks for highlighting that. It looks like a ton of you are currently looking for a position, so we're excited you're here. For those of you that are unsure, hopefully you get a sense of what this position entails today and what similar positions entail, so you can start to make a decision about your next career. And for those of you that are not looking for a job, we're going to be looking for your feedback based on maybe how you got your job that you currently have, or any insights you can provide to us and our volunteers tonight. So happy to have all of you here. All right, this next question here is, again, just to get a sense of who we have with us here tonight. What sorts of fields are you interested in? We always like to know who we have with us in the room and share some insights, again, that apply to all of these different areas. What I have noticed working in this field of helping students prepare, whether you're looking to go into the health sector, education, arts, business, the more effectively you can communicate. And Aziz talked a bit about the hard skills you need to be successful. I've also noticed that the soft skills are extremely important to be successful. And I'll share a quick video on that in just a second here from someone you might know. His name is Jeff Weiner. And what I've seen is that it doesn't matter whether you need to tell someone about a new piece of code you're writing, or you want to communicate a new marketing strategy, or talk about a design you're building. The more effectively you can communicate that with your team and share it with your customers and clients, the better chance you have of being successful. And I'm curious, from your perspective, Josh, what you see in terms of employers looking for these skill sets. Where's the onus on soft skills right now?
Yeah, especially with entry-level hires, it is those transferable skills that have been identified as kind of what's lacking or what they're specifically seeking out. Something that, and there's a higher round conference, sorry, I forget the name, but there is a group made up of business leaders in Canada and people from educational institutions, and they kind of connect with each other to figure out what kind of transferable skills should we be developing. And the top 5 of those are all kind of this similar transferable skills year after year. Communication, problem solving, collaboration is a massive one. Critical thinking, and I think sometimes math skills as well too. But one that's popped up recently is resilience. That's never been part of the list, but it's kind of popped up too. So yeah, especially for entry level, that tends to be a focus.
Okay, well, we're going to be talking a lot about those skill sets today, especially communication skills and how you can use InStage simulations to practice those in a safe place, make some mistakes and learn from them. And again, a big thank you to our volunteers for jumping in the hot seat for that tonight. Next question here is, Aziz, I'm curious about your thoughts on this one because of what you're saying about the focus on technical skills right now. Where do you think the interest for students to have the soft skills is, to what Josh is saying here?
Yeah, it is also becoming more critical, right? So at RBC, we had published a report, I think a couple of years back, about the future of work, and we titled it "Human Skills Required." The reason was that, we saw the research in terms of technology and artificial intelligence and machine learning replacing certain types of roles. But the pieces that a machine can't really replace are some of those human skills: effective communication, professional judgment, empathy, right, and compassion, and then teamwork, even leadership as well. Those are things that a computer can't learn, right? And those are areas that I think students, if they have them, can really stand apart from the crowd.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that insight. I think a lot of that comes from confidence and the chance you've had to expose yourself to situations that need those skills. So again, excited to show you how that's going to work tonight. And I'm glad a lot of you recognize that, who are listening here, the importance of those communication skills, those human skills, as Aziz has put it. And I want to just share a quick clip here that made an impact on me when I saw it, just because Jeff Weiner is someone with a ton of information about this, this specific question. What skills are employers looking for with someone, that has access to the entire LinkedIn database? Here are his thoughts on what the future of work holds.
When I talk about a skills gap here on stage, what's the first thing that comes to mind? What's the first skill you think there would be a gap on? Coding. That's what everyone says. So software development, software engineering, cloud computing, data storage, web development, mobile development, and of course AI. Very top of mind, and when I meet with and talk to customers all over the world, I'm feeling a far greater sense of urgency on that front. But it turns out that's not the biggest skills gap in the United States. The biggest skills gap in the United States is soft skills.
So interesting to hear from his perspective there. And of course, encouraging for us to hear, because we know we can help solve that. So for those of you that might be worried about communication skills or how to present yourselves and how to, bring those human skills across, we're going to talk about that today. One of the last questions here before we get our volunteers into the simulations, what sort of communication skills are you worried about? And if you don't see something in the polls that you'd like to bring up or you'd like to ask, let us know in the chat, let us know in the Q&A, and we'll get those questions asked to Aziz and Josh, who are with us here tonight. While we're looking at that, we actually have one coming through in the chat here. How can you deal with the anxiety pre-interview that causes you to blank out and not perform at your best? A great question that I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds. Aziz, what are your thoughts on that? How do you prepare for that anxiety? It's high pressure being in an interview, of course.
Yeah, so the first thing I'll say is that, one, it is not unusual, right? We've all had moments like that, throughout our entire careers. And two, there are different ways that you can deal with the anxiety, right? A lot of the times, it depends on your personality, but things like meditating before you go into your interview can help. If you're more prone to exercise or taking a walk, those types of things can help. Anything that takes your mind off of the situation, right, to just get you in a more relaxed state are some of the things that you can do to handle that anxiety.
Thanks a lot for those insights. These practical things, things you can do right now. So really appreciate that. Josh, anything to add here, especially seeing the results of what students here tonight are worried about, primarily filler words, it looks like, and answering difficult questions, ways to prepare from your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things. And I think each person is unique. So it is a matter of finding what works for you. A couple ideas I sometimes think about is including a little bit of imagery. So thinking about a clock, and when you're kind of nervous, it feels like it's going like this. It's going fast, right? Everything's kind of moving fast. Well, that's actually not always helpful. So slowing yourself down and visualizing this clock and watching it go slower. Even me kind of doing this, people can kind of feel the sensation a little bit. So that's tangibly going to potentially change kind of
that's very cool.
Your mindset and where you're at. The other I like to think of is reframing. It's telling you it's important. It's not telling you that there's something scary. It's not like there's a tiger around the corner or anything. That's what it's kind of in us for. That's why we've been given that kind of reaction. So sometimes reframing it as it's energy that tells me it's important, that I can kind of use and harness. And then a little bit of just accepting the practice that you've done. If you've prepared well for it, if you feel like what questions are going to ask you, you've got kind of stories prepared based off of kind of the job description, what's required for it. You feel like you can speak to some of those points, but just reviewing, thinking about some of the prep you've done and how that's setting you up for success.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh and Aziz. I'll just throw one other way you can prepare to help overcome some of those nerves. It's this company called InStage. They do some interview prep, and I'll show it to you. See what you think. It might be a nice way something to add in your roster, something to think about. All right, let's get this going. We're going to get our volunteers into the simulation now. I want to know now from our external interview committee, as you're all about to be, how many of you have ever interviewed someone else before? And while I do that, everyone, I'm going to get our simulation up on screen here. We're going to have a new participant here. Her name is Ava. She is going to introduce our volunteers tonight to the simulation, and she's going to introduce them to a headhunting company called SAPO that's going to be making a recommendation to RBC tonight. So this is Ava, everyone. We'll hear from her in just a second, but let's take a look here and see first how many people have actually interviewed someone before, so we can let Owen, Alith, and Monot know, what kind of pressure they're under here tonight. All right, so to our volunteers, we have quite an experienced external interview committee here tonight. A lot of people have interviewed before, so definitely let us know your questions and your thoughts in the chat as we go through this. Of course, we're going to hear from our guest experts, but if you have insights or questions from the external side of things, let us know. And one more thing we're going to do for fun here is we would love to first make sure you are qualified to be on the RBC external interview committee here. So let us know what you know about RBC. And Aziz, what are your thoughts on these questions here?
This is actually hilarious. Because oh man, I actually don't know this. The original name, I think it was the Royal Merchants Bank. I think that's what it was. And yeah, of course, I know how many people we employ.
Fantastic. Well, we'll just have some fun with that. What we need to do now is, for those of you that know our volunteers here tonight, let us know in the chat who you would like to see go first here. We have Owen, we have Monot, and we have Alith. We need someone to answer this first question first. So let us know in the chat who you'd like to see go first here. And we're going to make sure our volunteers are mic'd up and ready to go. All right, we'll give that just another second here. Okay. So it looks like we do have, some very informed external interview committee here tonight. RBC is a massive company with over 80,000 employees, and nicely done, Aziz here, of course, Merchant Bank being the original name there. So great to see everyone. You can now let us know who you are on the external interview committee here while we find out who's going up. It looks like it's going to be Owen. So Owen, let's get you on the mic here. I'm going to tell you who's in the room for your external interview committee in just a second. But how are you feeling tonight, Owen, being someone who's about to go through an interview?
I'm feeling good. Certainly have that pre-interview nerves that we were talking about. I'm trying to take a few deep breaths and slow it down a bit. That's something I try to use for myself. Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you answer this question. The way it's going to go is Ava is going to introduce you again to the other committee members who are going to interview you tonight. And we're going to take you through the first question. We'll get everyone through the first question first, get some of those nerves out. And then in the second and third questions, we'll start to show you some of the data that this program can generate. So have some fun in here. We'll hear some feedback. Just so you know who's in the room with you tonight here. Owen, we have a ton of hiring managers. We have Thomas Keener. I'm not sure why he's here. He's not part of RBC, for those of you that know. RBC rotational program interns are here tonight. A couple representatives from Green Gots. So a totally stacked external interview committee for you here tonight, Owen. Let's get into this. Ava, over to you to kick this off. And Owen, once the characters have told you a bit about themselves, they're going to ask you to start by telling them a bit about yourself. So over to you, Ava. Okay, sounds good.
Hello, I'm Ava. I work with SAPO executive team, and I'm here to get you set up for your screening interview. One word of advice. SAPO uses something called the STAR model. This is a 4-step process that can be used to help articulate questions that call for examples. For example, if they ask you a question that says something like, "Tell me a time when," it means you should walk through these 4 steps. Situation, give them some background and context. Task, state what the problem or challenge is. Action, what specific activity did you take? And result, what were some of the outcomes? Following this framework will help make your answers clear and easy to follow. If they ask questions that could use this STAR model, I will try to give you a heads up by putting a hint on the laptop in front of you. Okay, that's it. Easy, right? Are you ready?
I am.
All right, Owen, we'll get you in there in just a second. Make sure we got our signal clear here.
All right. Good luck to you.
Hi, I'm David Kwan. I'm a regional manager here at SAPO. I've been with the company for 10 years, and these are my colleagues. Anita, who is an up-and-coming manager, and George, who is a product manager. Anyhow, thank you for coming in today. We won't take up too much of your time. Our main goal today is to make sure that SAPO is a good fit for you, and you're a good fit for SAPO. So without further delay, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Am I ready to go?
Yes, go ahead, Owen.
Okay. David, George, and Ania, thank you very much for having me and taking the time out of your day to learn a little bit more about me. And I hope I'm able to learn a little bit more about you and the work that you do. I'll first start off. My name is Owen Crawford Lem, and I am a second-year student at Queen's University studying politics and sociology while also doing a certificate in business. I'm actually coming to you here today from a hotel conference room because it's the only place that I'm able to currently get Wi-Fi. So thank you again for taking the time today.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Owen. So a great introduction to get started here. Let's start with Aziz. What are your thoughts on Owen's introduction here? And everyone else, from here on out, the polls are going to be all about your thoughts on how our interviewees are doing here tonight. So let us know in this first poll how you thought Owen did there. And let's just make sure we got Aziz on the line here.
Yeah,
perfect. There we go. All right. What are your thoughts on that that intro there, Aziz?
Yeah, so that was a fairly good intro, Owen. Obviously telling people your name, and why it's good to say your name is because if someone has seen your resume, they may not know how to pronounce it, right? So it's always good to let them know exactly how you'd like your name said. And loved the bit about how you're in a specific place because the Wi-Fi works better there. It's a little, it has a bit of humor in it, probably lets people feel more relaxed getting into it.
Okay, awesome. So there's some feedback from you from Aziz, Owen. What about you, Josh? Any thoughts that you would add to those?
No, I think that's great.
Okay, fantastic. Well, let me just show you some of the results from our external interview committee here now, Owen. So some thoughts from the group here. Everyone enjoys that you thanked the interviewers for the opportunity here. So really great way to start this by making sure you take the onus off you here. It's not just about you today. It's about making sure that they have a good fit for the role. So I think people would have liked to hear a bit more about your previous experience, but you did talk about your education. Some of those previous experiences can make it feel like you're a bit more qualified for the position, but we'll get to that as we continue to go through the interview here. So thank you again for that. How are you feeling now after answering that first interview question? Let us know.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. It was a bit of a different experience to do the VR thing, but it's really cool. Now, if you don't mind, I actually have a quick question just about some of the feedback there.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering, what is the best way to actually introduce some of your previous experiences there? Because often for me, it doesn't really feel like it flows well in an introduction, but perhaps someone else has some tips and tricks on how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we could start with Aziz on that. That's a great question.
Yeah, so that's a very good question, and usually most times there are two ways of looking at it, right? The person might just ask you, "Hey, tell me about you." And then there may be a follow-up question to talk specifically about your experience. But in this case, if you want to just sort of go through that straight, right? It's always best to start with, if you say, "Oh yeah, so I'm a student here. I'm interested in this role, and I'm interested because of X, Y, Z. And here's some of the things that I've done. I'm a gold medal winning athlete for the Queen's track team." Right. And I also interned at the other bank that shall remain nameless. And I did X, Y, Z, including make some photocopies and whatnot, whatever it is that you did. And that way you can just sort of weave your experience right into the answering the question.
Great. Well, thank you. I'll try that out next time.
Sorry, Josh, I had myself on mute there. Any thoughts from you on how to structure that before I move on to our next volunteer here?
Yeah, sometimes we talk about a couple different structures, but sometimes it's helpful to have a bit of a feel for what are some of those key messages you definitely want to be communicating throughout the interview in general. And I think with the kind of intro question here, you could either do it kind of chronologically, so telling a story, I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. Or you could even have kind of those key points that you want to talk about. I think we want to keep it within the lens for the most part about what's relevant for the job, but this is also an opportunity to maybe include some kind of things that aren't so relevant but are interesting or may kind of spark some interest as well.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you both for those insights. Let's go on to Monot here now. We'll get Monot answering this question. So Monot, if you're ready, can we get you on the mic?
Yes. Hi.
All right, we're going to repeat the question for you here, and then we'll give you a chance to get started.
Hi, I'm David Kwan. I'm a regional manager here at SAPO. I've been with the company for 10 years, and these are my colleagues. Anita, who is an up-and-coming manager, and George, who is a product manager. Anyhow, thank you for coming in today. We won't take up too much of your time. Our main goal today is to make sure that SAPO is a good fit for you, and you're a good fit for SAPO. So without further delay, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, so I'm Monot, and I'm in my second year of commerce at Queen's University. I love marketing and law, and I would like to work in those two fields in the future. When I was 10 years old, I first jumped into the swimming pool to escape the 48 degrees Celsius summer heat in Delhi, India. Because of my curiosity, I was able to learn all 4 strokes of swimming within 4 weeks. And later, I began to enjoy the sport so much that I invested all my time and effort into learning more about the sport. 3 years later, I was the best swimmer, breaststroke swimmer in India, and I created a national record in 100 meters breaststroke at the CBSE Nationals. The sport taught me everything in my life. I believe that I'm a hardworking person. I am resilient. I am able to accept critical feedback in my professional and personal life and deliver improved results based on those, based on the critical feedback. I also am super interested in the beauty industry, and I'm currently working on starting my own club, connecting commerce students to the beauty industry. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monot. Let's start with you, Josh. What are your thoughts on that one? And let us know what you think in the polls of Monot's introduction here.
I thought it was great. I thought you covered a couple different experiences, which is probably going to tease what's going to come up later on in the interview. Good tone, some excitement there too. Yeah.
Awesome. What about you, Aziz? Any thoughts on Monot's introduction here?
Yeah, I agree. Well-structured, good pace, good vibrancy, and of course, the personal story is always very interesting because I think that's one of those things that gets the level of endearment really high.
Awesome. Well, it looks like some great results for you as well in the polls here, Monot. So people, again, really appreciating that you thanked them for the opportunity, that you spoke about some previous experience, and they felt that enthusiasm. So nicely done there. We're going to go over to Alith now. How are you feeling? Let's get you on the mic.
Feeling good, thank you.
All right, let's repeat this one more time, and then we're going to start doing some data after this. So this is your chance to warm up, to try and use some of the tips and tricks you've heard, and then we're going to get on to some of the other questions here. So one more time, let's ask this question for Alith.
Hi, I'm David Kwan. I'm a regional manager here at SAPO. I've been with the company for 10 years, and these are my colleagues. Anita, who is an up-and-coming manager, and George, who is a product manager. Anyhow, thank you for coming in today. We won't take up too much of your time. Our main goal today is to make sure that SAPO is a good fit for you, and you're a good fit for SAPO. So without further delay, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. My name is Leith Roos. I'm a third-year political studies major at Queen's University. I was originally born in Bogota, Colombia. I was raised in Ottawa, Ontario, and I've had the pleasure of going to school in Kingston for the past 3 years. At Kingston, I have had the pleasure of working as the Academics Commissioner of the Arts and Science Undergraduate Society. And in this role, it's been a lot of advocacy work, engaging with different faculty members and stakeholders, and also kind of having the opportunity to have that managerial role as well. So I've had the chance to really enjoy a lot of different opportunities and experiences that I've been able to kind of dive into. In addition to that, I've also worked as an intern at the US Embassy in Ottawa, and that's kind of sparked my interest in larger organizations and being able to engage, which is exactly what sparked my interest in this role today. So thank you again for taking the time to meet with me, and I'm looking forward to sharing all of my experiences with you as well today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alith. Over to you, Aziz. What are your thoughts on Alith's introduction here? And one more time, let us know in the chat and let us know in this poll what you thought of that answer, everyone.
Yeah, Alith, that was really good as well. You know, great enthusiasm. Love the smile. Love the fact that you're showing interest. And as I mentioned before to Monot and even to Owen, you know, the personal touch is always a plus, a big plus.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those insights. And Josh, over to you. Any thoughts for Alith here?
Yeah, I love the energy, love the excitement. Maybe a little fast. I think some of it, you're smiling because you know it too. Probably when it was happening, you kind of knew it was happening a little bit too.
Yeah.
A couple of things I really liked. You provided kind of some diverse experiences. And I like that you touched on your how. That's something I'm always kind of thinking about with students, especially with this question. Not just what you want to do with the job, but like why do you want to do it? Like what makes it important? What makes it meaningful? So I think sometimes this is a good opportunity to include some of that stuff.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Josh and Aziz. Alith, you can see here in the polls, again, some really positive feedback from everyone listening. So thank you, everyone, for warming up with that opening question. And we're going to go into things like that. We can measure speed of how fast you're speaking. We can measure filler words like some of you are asking here. And we're going to show you that as we go through some of the other questions now here. So any questions from you, Alith, before we hop on to the next one here?
No, that all sounds great. I think speaking fast is always that first default moment when you're in the interview. So I'm happy that was noted out because I think that's something that you're able to kind of pay attention to and maybe slow it down a little bit. So thank you.
Well, thank you for giving us a chance to learn from you today. All right, before we move on to the next question, I want you to all just take a quick second and think of some quick takeaways for a question like this. So one thing we've heard across the board here is to thank the interviewers for their time. I think it goes a long way. It's just one of those human qualities that Aziz mentioned early on that I think gets people on your side. So fantastic work, everyone, for doing that. One great way we've heard about structuring an answer for this question through the thousands of students we've run this through is to talk about your past, present, and future. So what have you done that makes you a good fit for the role? What are you currently doing that's going to make it easy for you to transition into that position? And what are you hoping to accomplish in the future that might align with the goals of the company? One great example I've heard of that is that we had someone applying for an accounting position, and they mentioned that they were working towards a CPA. You know, it's a personal goal of theirs, but it aligned so well with what the company was looking for. So a couple things to think about in terms of how you would structure your answer. Of course, you want to do your research, know the company well. And I think something all our volunteers have done really well here is be personable. You know, you can tell they're people you would want to work with, at least I would. So great job, everyone, so far. Let's hop into the next question here now. And thank you, everyone, for your questions. We're going to continue to answer those as we go along here. And we'll also get to a ton of Q&A at the end.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thanks for that answer.
All right, let me give you a quick example now of what to expect in terms of data here. So before we jump into this next question, and let us know in the chat who you want to see go first this time. It can't be Owen. He took the brave route there first and went first last time. So let us know between Monot and Alith who you want to see go first here. But this is a quick example of what we're going to see next. All right, we're going to look at how fast our speakers are talking. We're going to look at how many potential filler words they're using, as well as how loudly and how clearly they're speaking. So we have a lot to look forward to as we go through our next question here. Let me see who it's going to be. It looks like Alith. All right, Alith, are you ready?
Ready to go.
All right, give me 1 second here. All right, this question is for you, Alith.
So, why are you applying for this position?
I think that's a great question. As a whole, I'm very much a passionate person. I've always found that within different situations and different scenarios, I'm really able to develop different skills and adapt. And so for that reason, I'm really interested in kind of stepping outside of my comfort zone, getting into a new situation, a new environment that I haven't necessarily really been in the past. I am a politics student. And so because of that, the economics lens has always been something that's really interested in me. And I want to further my knowledge in it as well. Pertaining to the job in particular, I've always been really passionate about developing my analytical skills. This past year, I've had the pleasure of engaging with a lot of research data, of putting out surveys in terms of my advocacy work. And I think this is really applicable and transferable to the financial sector as well. And so that's something that I'm really passionate about exploring, and having the opportunity to engage within a community setting is something that I'm really interested in doing, and seeing how I can apply the communication skills, apply this analytical skills that I've developed within an environment that is very professional, that is very adaptable, and that can also allow me to develop a lot as a worker.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alith.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thanks for that answer.
All right, we're going to have that data queued up in just a second while that's loading up here. Josh, what are your thoughts on Alith's answer to that question? Why are you applying for that position?
I thought it was great. This is one of those questions, and I know it might not be, it's kind of a unique context that might be a little bit different, but this is a great place to show off some of the research you've done for that company. So dropping a little bit of knowledge about maybe a program that's going on, or a project they're working on, or a partner or something, or like looking at their about section, what's the values that they have, what's their mission statement, and kind of maybe talking about how you align with that as well. But I think a lot of the content you included was fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Josh. Let us know, of course, what you're thinking, everyone listening here, about Alith's answer to that question. Aziz, anything you would add to that feedback?
Yeah, I liked how you tied in your current field to the role itself, right? And especially considering that it's very different. So, but how you linked the core skills and capabilities that you have in your politics field to what can be done within a financial institution. So that was really good. The only thing I would say is probably to get to that point a lot faster or a lot earlier in your answer, so that I don't get lost trying to figure out, oh, is she really going to answer the question in this case?
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, so let's take a quick look at some of the feedback in the polls here and from the data report. So one thing everyone really likes that you're doing here, at least, is that you're smiling, and that makes a big difference. Again, we enjoy listening to what you're saying, and as you start to work some of these things through, I think you're going to feel that confidence start to develop as well. So a lot of people felt that you linked your reason to the position, and that's something that we've heard Aziz and both Josh mention as we go through this. This is a quick look at the data report on the whole here. So let's look down here. The filler word of choice right now is so, and that's something to keep in mind as we go through this. It's one of those things that can be used in context, but might be distracting if used too much. So something for everyone to look out for right now. But what we'll do next is we'll hop over to Monot in this next question, and we'll continue to start to look at some of that data as we go through here. So thank you very much for answering that one, Alith. Over to you. Monot, are you good to go?
Yes.
All right, just 1 second here. All right, everyone, we'll get Monot here up in just a second. All right, Monot. This one's again over to you.
So, why are you applying for this position?
So I believe that a financial analyst position at RBC is an ideal opportunity for me because I aim to sharpen my skills in finance from learning from no other than the best talent at RBC. The company values are what appeal most to me. RBC stands with accountability, integrity. They stand for diversity and inclusion. And these are some things that I personally value and keep close to my heart. I'm the Diversity and Inclusion Ambassador at Queen's Student Alumni Association. And being a minority and a person of color, diversity and inclusion in a workplace and in a professional environment is very important for me so that my opinions are mattered and they are considered equally. And I believe that there's no better platform to learn about, to start my financial career rather than RBC. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that. All right, let's take a look at that data in just a second here. And let's start with Josh this time. What are your thoughts on that, Josh?
Yeah. I like that you kind of did a little bit of research and brought it into kind of the conversation there. But maybe making it a little bit more kind of vibrant. So what aspects of your life does this value kind of pop up? What moments kind of maybe have demonstrated it in the past or really kind of evoked that kind of feeling for you too? Yeah, I think that's maybe one piece of feedback for you.
Okay, sounds good. What about you, Aziz? It's a tricky question, but what did you think of Monot's answer to that one?
Yeah, so this one was interesting and different. So what I did like was the focus on the values, right? So when you talk about a company's values, it's like talking about the thing that they like to shine the most with. So it's tugging on those heartstrings of an organization. And what I liked that you did, Monot, was tie that value to something that you're actually connected to personally. The fact that you have a D&I role in school and you link that to RBC's D&I philosophy is perfect. The only thing, again, that I would say that you probably need to work on is ensuring that your answer is complete, right? So that the role specifically, you also have to be able to give a clear answer to that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Aziz. And Josh, any questions from you, Monot, about some of that feedback or anything you want to ask about this question?
No, I agree that I should have spoken more about the role itself, but thank you for the great feedback. It's really helpful for me. Thanks.
All right.
One thing to maybe, sorry, if you don't mind me adding one extra thing there.
For sure.
Sometimes I work with students on how to manage the moment immediately after they ask a question. So when they ask you it, what's your process? Do you acknowledge it and like kind of buy a couple seconds? Say, okay, so I'm just kind of collecting my thoughts. And now all of a sudden you've got 20, 30 seconds without that pressure. So sometimes I just work specifically with students on how am I approaching that specific moment.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really valuable insight, Josh, because we've heard that question a couple times in the chat here. How do you prepare? If you do have that awkward pause or you're trying to think of what to say. So I think it's worth noting, everyone, that you can ask for that second to just collect your thoughts. Really appreciate that insight. Some of the insights here that we're seeing from the polls, Monot, again, looking good. That you had a good, clear explanation makes a big difference. We want to see a bit more of that smile, but one thing I'll note from your data report here is that it's very easy to understand what you're saying. You're speaking very clearly. You have a good mic there, and that kind of stuff makes a huge difference right now. So nicely done on that. We're going to get Owen here now. How are you feeling, Owen? We'll get you answering that question as well. Let me know when you're on the mic and ready to go there, Owen.
I am ready to go here.
All right.
So, why are you applying for this position?
Thanks for that question, David. I think it really stems back to my first interest in business and finance. I currently am a politics and sociology student at Queen's, and last summer I actually had the opportunity to do an internship with RBC Wealth Management, 2 advisors there, and that really gave me the opportunity to learn more about the daily functions of someone that works at RBC and someone who actually is sorry, is that part of the program? Okay. I'll continue here. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there.
You got this, Owen. That can happen. Keep going. You're doing well.
I had the opportunity to intern with 2 advisors at RBC, and they gave me the opportunity to look at their day-to-day operations and gave me a really valuable experience into both Excel and PowerPoint, but also business development and client acquisition, cold calling. So I really developed some communication skills in that sense with people that I might not usually communicate with. And that really fueled my interest in business and finance. And that's currently why I'm actually doing a certificate in business at Queen's, because I'm really passionate about it. And I'm also trying to apply that to my program in politics, looking at kind of the political economy and different things like that. So that's one of the main reasons that I'm applying to this position.
Okay, thank you very much, Owen. A definite tricky one there, but I think you did well. Let's go over to Aziz. Aziz, what did you think of Owen's answer here?
Owen, I was also thrown off by the cell phone ringing distraction.
I'm sorry, Owen. I felt like you could handle it, and I'm going to talk about that. But go on, Aziz. Please go on.
Yes. So yes, I love your answer again. A good different scenario where you're leveraging prior experience that you had at the same organization, which I think lends itself well to showing that, hey, I liked it the last time, so I'm curious to come back again. Love how you tied in some of the things that you learned in the previous role and how you are applying those concepts even into your current program and how it's fueling your interest. So well done on those points.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask you a question. I'm sure everyone's wondering here. Aziz, what do you do if someone's phone goes off like that? How did Owen respond in that sense?
So this was a bit different because I think we weren't sure where that was coming from, but in a real interview, you would know whose phone was ringing. But if it's one of those where you've got a panel and no one is budging, and the phone is not yours, you just continue, you carry on, and hope that it was just part of a test.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Owen, I think you did well there. Josh, what are your thoughts on Owen's answer to that question, especially with the challenge element thrown in?
Yeah, I thought your response was really authentic, and you just kind of I think there's a value in how you respond to kind of weird things like that too. And I think you're very authentic and, okay, this is something that probably isn't supposed to be happening. And I think that's good kind of reaction. Otherwise, with your response, I thought it was really well organized. You had definitely a good structure and kind of you did a really good job separating out kind of what was the expectations of the moment, what were some of your actions, and how that's going to tie into the role. So we oftentimes in our workshops kind of talk about a structure called STAR. So situation, task, action, result. And I think you did a great job following that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Aziz and Josh. All right, let me talk a bit about that cell phone distraction here now. Of course, today what you're seeing is InStage being used as a chance for you to learn a bit about it. Typically, when students practice with this, it's not in front of a group of people. It's privately on your own. And those sorts of things are something you can practice dealing with individually in our solo mode. So, Owen, I just wanted to show an example of what that's like. Thank you for rolling with it and continuing to give a great response there. I agree. I think you handled it well as could be expected with how surprising it might have been. Let's take a look at how the data turned out here. You spoke for just under 2 minutes. What we're looking at here in terms of filler words here, still just a few so's, a few ums, but of course we're practicing today, and those are things that you can start to see progress on as you continue practicing and hopefully track to a point that you're happy with. Also very easy to understand what you're saying. So clear mic, no problem understanding you in that sense. And other than that, any questions from you before we move on to our next question?
Oh, not from me. Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's circle back around here now. We're going to move on to our next question here. Let's get Monot up first this time. Monot, let me know when you're on the mic and ready to go. We're going to get on to our next question.
I'm ready.
All right, perfect.
So can you tell us a story about a tough leadership decision you had to make?
Sorry, I'm just going to take a minute to gather my ideas. Okay, so one instance where I had to make a tough decision, one in leadership, was when, right now I'm working to start my own club, which is around connecting Queen's Commerce students to the beauty industry. One tough leadership decision that I had to take was choosing my executive team. In that, I contacted my people in my class through a Facebook post, and around 7 to 8 people contacted me back from reading the Facebook post. From then on, I held meetings individually with each person, and everyone had amazing ideas. Everyone had amazing perspectives and opinions on what a beauty club should look like. I had my own perspectives on what the beauty club should be, and what events it should hold, and how it should connect the Queen's Commerce students to the beauty industry leaders. The tough decision was to select the co-chair for my club. That decision, again, as I mentioned, everyone had amazing ideas, opinions, and perspectives that they brought with them, but I had to make this difficult decision. The criteria that I chose, sorry, I'm gonna take a second to repeat that.
You're doing great, Monot.
The way I took this difficult decision was by developing a criteria. I had three top criteria in making that decision, which was first, the work that each person put into our meetings. Second, the creativity level, because the idea that I have for the club is that the club should be driven by creativity and a growth mindset and an open mindset. So the creativity, and third, the time commitment that each person was willing to put into getting this club ratified and making this club into a reality. So yes, I have now selected my co-chair, who is in my class, Com 23, and yeah, that's how I took that difficult decision.
Okay, thank you very much, Monot. Let's head over to Aziz there. Awesome job getting through it. A tough question, especially if you're not expecting it. So well done getting through it and using some of the advice you've just learned. So nicely done. Aziz, what are your thoughts on this? And let us know in the polls what your thoughts are, everyone.
Yeah, so that was a very challenging question, and Monot, I think you handled it quite well. I think one thing that I should highlight is the first thing that Monot did, right, which was to say, let me take some time to think about it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with taking a moment to gather your thoughts, gather your ideas, especially for a question like this. I've done it in my own interviews, and I've seen people that I've interviewed do it as well. So great job on that. Obviously, of course, as we go through these types of things, of course, Monot, I'd say watch out for the fillers, and make sure that when you do gather your thoughts, that it's all coherent and comes out very clearly. I do like the example that you gave, and how you you actually talked through a system, a decision-making criteria. I think that's very, very unique, and something that actually lends itself to show that your decision wasn't an emotional one, but you had metrics and you stuck to those regardless of what was swaying. So that's really, really good. Well done on that, Monot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for those insights, Aziz. Josh, I'm curious, because you just mentioned this model, the STAR model. Can we talk a bit about that and how you might be able to use it to answer a question like this?
For sure, yeah. I actually think it's really great in preparing for interviews to practice and kind of have like 3 to 5 strong stories in your back pocket. And when you tell them multiple times, you have more grasp over the details and you become much more intentional. So I really like how much detail Monot really got into there. In future, I maybe wouldn't include all of those details, but listing them all out helps you see what are the things I want to cover and what are the things maybe I don't want to as much. But 2 really essential kind of things is, what's the moral of that story? The moral of that story should answer the question. And a good way to set that up is, what's the problem that allowed you to do that? What's the challenge? Thinking back on some of my interview answers, it was actually kind of like really difficult, almost nightmarish experiences that I was able to kind of gather and think about all the dynamics and what was kind of going on with that context, that allowed me to tell really vivid, descriptive stories that demonstrate what they're kind of looking for. So yeah, I think the task and the action pieces are really kind of the main pieces of those answers, and then making sure it ties back to the job.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. All right. And again, thank you, Monot, for going through that. All right. So how about we head over to Owen, and then we'll do Alith. So Owen, are you ready? Let's get you on the mic to try this one out.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
So can you tell us a story about a tough leadership decision you had to make?
Of course, David, I'd love to. Last summer, actually, in addition to working with RBC, I had the opportunity to be a program leader at a summer camp where I oversaw their sports programs, soccer, basketball, and multi-sport. And in the pandemic and the changing environment, we had to completely shift our programming online, which was a very tough time for all of us, especially people like myself who were trying to decide how sports programming, which is usually done outside, is going to be turned into a virtual environment. So that was really tough in and of itself. And then bringing on a team that we thought was confident enough to run a program for the first time, another tough thing to do. But I'd really like to exemplify one particular issue that I had and I was able to overcome. And it was actually with a staff member of mine who wasn't, I'd say, giving it their all and 100% all the time, which is completely understandable, but something that needs a bit of work on in the environment that we're going with. So what we had to do is I first talked to my other leadership team, as well as our camp director, on just next steps and how to implement strategies that might allow leadership to talk to this individual in a way that they didn't necessarily feel as though their job was being performed subpar or something like that. But it was really an interesting opportunity for me to see, and not being in a leadership position before that time. Sorry, it was a really interesting experience for me, and it allowed me to transfer some of the skills that I know and have understood just through my own personal interactions to actually a leadership position in a corporate setting.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Owen. Let's start with Aziz. What are your thoughts on Owen's explanation here of a tough leadership decision he's had to make?
Yeah, good story, Owen. Very personal as well, right? So good situational example, and also I like the fact that you also brought up, or there's a subtle thing that I noticed, the fact that this was a situation that you did or that you experienced while working in your prior experience, right? So, that
So
tells
can
me.
you tell us a story about a
sorry,
tough
there it is.
decision you had to make?
That's my mistake there.
I can answer that question. So Owen, that piece also tells me like, you probably were able to manage your time well to be able to handle, working at RBC as well as doing the summer camp role. So very, very good work, with in terms of portraying that through your answer.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Aziz. Josh, what are your thoughts on that one? How did Owen do in terms of telling a story that relates to the position, possibly using something like the STAR model? What are your thoughts there?
I really like the transition from task to action, or actually from situation to task. So you really did a good job kind of setting the context. Here's what's going on. Here's some of the moving pieces. You said, this is the specific thing that I was kind of working on, or had to kind of deal with. So it really did a good job. Here's the thing, boom, this is what we're going to kind of focus on. And then you kind of walked through it. I think something, and you might have said it and I could have missed it. So I would probably, if there's other interviewers, I would probably rely on this a little bit and see what they got. But I didn't necessarily catch what you were making a decision on. What was that tough leadership decision? Like what were you thinking about? What were some of the factors that went into that? So picking one kind of specific decision.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for those insights, Aziz and Josh, and thank you for the answer there, Owen. We're going to head over to Alith in just a second here. One thing that comes to mind here from the chat that I'm seeing is there a length to keep in mind for answering a question like this? Is there something that we should try and keep our answers to? Aziz, any thoughts on that?
Well, I would say you manage the time appropriately, given, let's say if you're there for a 30-minute interview, just be conscious of that overall time and adjust accordingly, because you also want to leave enough time for you to ask questions during your interview. And if you spend a lot of time telling, very lengthy stories, then, that doesn't give enough time for the interviewer to learn as much about you, or for you to learn as much about the company or the interviewer, depending on whether it's a hiring manager that you will eventually be working for. So I would say keep your answers as brief but as full as possible.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, over to Alith. How you feeling, Alith? Are you ready to answer this one?
Feeling good, yes.
All right, one more time for Alith here.
Perfect. I think that's a really good question. The first thing that kind of comes to mind to me is when I first began my experience as academics commissioner last summer. So my role began on May 1st of 2020, which happened to coincide just around the same time that the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And because of the overlap there, the big decision that had to be made was what the year was going to look like. That summer period is usually very pivotal to deciding what the programming is going to be, what planning has to go into it, what budgeting has to go into the requirements. And as academics commissioner, I was responsible for overseeing the implementation of all of my team's projects of 27 different committees, of 5 different groups, and a lot of leaders who were looking for direction in terms of what the upcoming year was going to look like. And it is a challenging thing to see what that entails, and having to kind of come to terms with the fact that that decision is on you. So it definitely was a large stakes question. And in doing so, what I kind of had to do was assess what are things that I can pull on to kind of provide support. How can I best be not only a leader for the group, but also a team support aspect of it as well, and working to ensure that they're also getting a positive experience out of this, regardless of the hardship. So I think in this approach, it was about having kind of a 2-pronged approach to the way these were taken about, and ensuring that the optimistic approach was still there, while it was also very much preparation and ensuring that everyone feels prepared to undergo these new tasks. So for myself, I think I had to analyze the situation, communicate effectively with each of them, and the solution wound up being just ensuring that there is preparation for whatever outcome it may be, and ensuring that all three aspects of whether it's a hybrid year, whether it's an in-person year, whether it's a remote year, we had a plan there and supporting them through that process. So it was still incredibly enjoyable and something that they were really able to engage with.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Alith. We're getting close to the end of the workshop here, so we'll keep this little bit of feedback brief for you, but a great answer to that question. So Aziz, any thoughts for Alith here on how she answered that question?
Yeah, so again, pretty wholesome. The personal stories always necessary. I think you use the STAR model effectively in terms of setting the scene, talking about the task that was at hand and the action you took. Also did a good job of talking about the results, the results that came out of it. Definitely also want to hear, I guess, situations where you again tie that to the role. I think that's one thing that I think everyone that has interviewed so far has probably missed, right? Is tying these leadership moments to the role itself and what lessons that you learned that could be applied in once you start this new role.
Okay, definitely a tricky part of structuring answers to these questions. So thank you for those insights, Aziz. Josh, anything you want to add as feedback for Alith here? And don't worry, Alith, this is everyone's data for this one. So you didn't say 87 ums or anything like that. Don't worry. Josh, any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to draw attention to was you included some emotional aspects of that story as well. What are the emotional difficulties of dealing with that pressure of that kind of situation? So sometimes people can kind of get stuck in the logistical, the logic kind of how do I structure it and sequence it. Having some of those emotional elements can be really powerful too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. And thank you for that answer, Alith. All right, that's all the time we have for questions today. So thank you to our volunteers for answering all those, giving us a chance to learn from them. And thank you to Aziz and Josh for all the feedback there. One last takeaway here for this question, and then we're going to go on to answering any questions from the Q&A here and handing it back over to the QSAA so you can learn a bit more about the resources available to you as students. Of course, when you answer a question like this, keep it relevant. Make sure what you are talking about, again, relates to the position that you're talking about, the lessons you've learned, and be personable. That's something that across the board, I think all our volunteers tonight have done really well. So excellent work on that front, everyone. All right. With no more time for questions tonight, we're going to wrap this up and ask you whether you think our interviewee should be hired tonight. So let us know. Have some fun with us here, External Interview Committee. Let us know if you think they should be hired, and I'm going to hand it back over to Aziz and Josh in just a second here for some final thoughts. All right, it's looking like some pretty unanimous results here, everyone. I can safely say it looks like you are all recommended to move forward and actually go out and apply for this position. So thank you, External Interview Committee, for all your feedback tonight. And thank you, of course, Josh and Aziz, for all the insights you've provided as well. So congratulations, volunteers. It looks like you are exceptionally qualified to move forward with your next interview. Awesome job. I want to hand it back over to the QSAA before we get into Q&A here and just make sure we've covered all bases that they want to get across for the workshop tonight. So thank you, Aziz and Josh. Thank you, volunteers. Back over to you, QSAA, before we get into any Q&A here.
I guess they're coming back.
In the meantime there, while we're waiting for the QSAA to just let us know how, we're going to talk a little bit about, again, how you can get access to this and the other resources the Career Services has available to you. Here's a quick question coming to you from the chat. So my question is, how do you think interviews have changed in light of the adaptation to virtual/Zoom platforms? So are there any additional challenges that you've experienced or witnessed, and do you have any tips for overcoming them? So maybe Aziz, someone in the hiring position there, what have you seen change now?
Yeah, so of course it's very different. You know, you don't feel the same energy that you do with when you're in person. But you know, the things that you experience both in person and virtual are the same, right? So if you're nervous in person, it's the same kind of nervousness that you display on video. So I would say that in terms of the advice for how to deal with virtual interviews is just think of them as you would be in a real life situation, like in a face-to-face situation. Make sure that you are well rested, because again, you know, if the camera amplifies things like negative facial features a lot more. So make sure that you're well rested so you don't look tired. Make sure that you're hydrated as well. You know, don't be afraid to have a bottle of water or a glass of water with you. Again, we know these things are tough. And smile. You know, that is, you know, let your body language convey as much enthusiasm as possible, even though it's a virtual environment and you know, it's not the most ideal. And I think make the most of the time. You know, as I mentioned before, you know, manage your time effectively so that you can actually have a conversation, you know, where you are asking questions. I'll give you a pro tip. When I was interviewing to join RBC after I finished my MBA at Queen's, during that 15 minutes where I was allowed to ask questions, we got into such a great conversation that our interview time went over by another half hour because we were really getting in to really good stuff. And the interviewer at the time told me, because I think I was giving more deeper answers than I had done for the formal questions. And so at the end, she told me, Aziz, you know, the stories that we just talked about, those are the things that you should be telling in your main interviews. All right. So that's why it's important to give that time so that you ask questions. You'll learn more about not just the role, but the company and the people outside of the formal questions. And you can do that, you know, as well in a virtual environment. I think it's even more crucial to do that in a virtual environment.
So thank you so much, Aziz. I think one of the most important questions that students might have tonight here. QSAA, back over to you if you're ready to close out the night here. We've had an awesome time working with you, Queens. It was fantastic to be back. Really appreciate the chance to work with all of you and hear some of your answers, volunteers. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. We would like to thank everyone for attending QSAA's VR interview workshop event. The real-time feedback was very useful, and we are delighted to have had you all here today. Please remember that appointments are available with career services, which can help you to be better prepared for your career search process or to book a session directly with InStage. After the event, an email will be sent through Zoom with a survey that we ask you to please complete so that we can better deliver effective programming. Once again, thank you speakers for speaking with us today, and thank you participants for joining. We hope that you have an enjoyable and worthwhile semester.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to say a big thank you as well to Benjamin Sewald from the QSAA team for helping organize this event, to Ariane Chowdhury and all the QSAA who helped organize this, all of you for coming out. We really appreciate it. And of course, reach out to Career Services to learn more about the resources there. Reach out to Josh to learn more about how to get access to a number of incredible Queen's resources. Josh, anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, thanks so much. I actually had a couple slides at the beginning of the presentation, which through my own fault, timing didn't really go great on my end. So I just wanted to quickly kind of cover a couple of those services that I think are going to be helpful. If you have kind of any kind of career thing going on, whether it's what do I want to do, how do I get there, feel free to book a career consultation. We explore and kind of discuss lots of those things that you're navigating. Looking for resume feedback, cover letter feedback, you can book a specific appointment there as well. Those are both in my career. If you got a quick question, you just want to chat and connect with somebody, we've got drop-in in the afternoons virtually. You can find the link in our My Career Events calendar as well. Those are Monday to Thursday, 1:30 to 3:30. Thinking about transferable skills, check out our Queen's skills cards. There's 44 transferable skills in here that provide a definition, components that break it down, and a example from Queen's students. And we've also recently just released our virtual kind of online skill card sorter. So you can kind of take a look at them and move them around and engage with the cards there as well. This is really helpful for identifying what are those transferable skills that are really your strengths for your applications. Check out our Queen's Best Resumes, cover letter, and interview magazines. Some really strong examples from Queen students. Our Interviews magazine is brand new, so there's some really cool content in there too. And I just wanted to mention tomorrow we have a Summer Opportunities Networking event where you can connect with some employers if you're looking for some work for this summer. So you can find the link and information in our My Career Events calendar as well. Great, thanks folks.
All right, a big thank you again to Aziz Garuba for joining us today from RBC. Really appreciate the insights, Aziz. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to the QSAA.
Cheers. Have a good one.